Give me 2 seconds.
Right.
There we go. We live. Up to you, Jeff.
All right, we're live. Welcome everyone to the Quarkus Global Hackathon opening ceremony. Today we want to talk all things Quarkus. We want to talk about the hackathon and talk about how you can use your Java skills and your development expertise to create applications and hopefully win some of the $30,000 prize money. So today we've got three folks on the line. Myself, I am a product marketing manager at Red Hat, and I'll let Max and Shaf introduce themselves when they're up. But the three of us are going to take you through a couple things here. We want to obviously talk about the hackathon overall. And then we want to spend some time talking about the community itself and talk about where it came from, where it's going, and how you can participate. Then we're going to get into the good stuff, a brief technical overview, and then a demo, and give you all the resources you need to get started and starting to develop applications. So with that, let me kick in with the overview here. So if you're attending this call, most likely you have registered or are considering registering for the hackathon. The most important part here, obviously, is the quarkus.devpost.com. That's the main page site. That's how we register, and that is where you'll kick off things like the submission rules and categories and all those things. So Shaf's going to talk a little bit about the technology. I just want to cover the details of the hackathon itself. We have a couple categories. So every application that is submitted will be applicable to the best overall prize. But then we also wanted to have a series of subcategories. So when you submit, you'll submit obviously for the best overall, and then you have the option of submitting to one subcategory. So the subcategories are serverless, Kubernetes native, IoT, and modernize. And so some of your applications may fall under multiple of those categories, but we ask that you just select one. What we wanted to do here was see what the development community overall could do in these use case scenarios, and Quarkus, as you may imagine, is a great fit for all these subcategories. Like I mentioned before, we've got $30,000 in prizes, so $10,000 to the best overall app, and then the individual categories are $5,000. So potentially, if you win overall and you win the best in your subcategory, you could walk away with $15,000. Just from a general perspective, we're looking for innovation, Quarkification, which is kind of a cute way of saying how did you use the Quarkus framework and application to differentiate or make your application what it is. Obviously, the UX part of it we'll take a look at, and is it easy to use for folks, and then potential impact from a technology or business perspective. So some of the judges we've got here are going to be Adam Bean, who's a Java champion, Katya Aresti, who is also a Java champion, Jason Green, who is a Red Hat Distinguished Engineer and a member of an important member of the Quarkus community, Ken Johnson, who is VP of Red Hat Application Services, and there's a few more we are waiting to announce that we're just waiting for final approvals and those kind of things. So look forward to that. So obviously the submissions, everything is going to be open source, and obviously you all will keep and protect your intellectual property, but we would like to see the open source delivery of your code so we can take a look at it. We'd like 5-minute demos, and don't make this too difficult. Really, just we want to see the application running. Tell us, what was the inspiration, kind of anything unique about that particular application, and anything supporting materials. All right, I wanted to give a kind of a glance at the hackathon timeline here. So obviously, you probably know at this point that Monday. Sorry, I forgot to disable my stuff here. Monday, we had the site launch, and today we're doing the opening ceremony, which is where we're at now. And then next week, we have this enablement week where we are tying into there's an existing DevNation Quarkus master course. The first one is on the fundamentals. The other one is on digging deeper a little bit into that. And then we want to start this weekly cadence of office hours. Most of them will be on Wednesday. The first one is on the 25th, which is a Thursday because of the master course. But the intent here is to address any questions, issues. We may come up for the first office hour as things kick off, maybe a relevant topic that will be helpful for you as you create your applications. So we're here to help kind of concept here. So we'll do a weekly cadence on that. And then on the 22nd of July, we will close out with the submission deadline, and we'll do a little bit of a closing ceremony. And that's just for the folks who are maybe waiting to the last minute, just things you need to make sure you do to get your app submitted. And then we'll kind of go into this quiet period where we take a look at the eligibility of the submissions. We look at some of the testing to make sure it works. And then we're going to select finalists from each one of the categories, and we'll announce those on the 10th. And then on Friday, we're going to try something interesting. We're going to do some live judging and awards ceremony where we actually keep with this open source nature and concept. We want to have the judges, record the judges as they openly have dialogue and discussions and questions about the application. So that should be really interesting to watch. And then we'll tabulate the scores in real time, and then award the winners. Couple of things to keep in mind as we move forward. I mentioned the office hours are there to help. The Quarkus Zulip chat, please sign up for that. We actually have a stream for the hackathon specifically on this chat, and this is where the community lives and breathes and works. So you can interact with everyone. If you got questions, this is the best place to get answers to those questions. We also have a hashtag Quarkit for Twitter. So if you want to, we'd love for you to share your stories or things you've learned along the way, or frustrations, or even if you want to, post questions or anything, we'll be there watching that. So please use that. And then we're using this Quarkus YouTube live channel that you're on, obviously, right now, to do the office hours, the ceremony, and those types of things. So that's kind of at a glance. Wanted to make sure everyone understood from the prize perspective. Like I mentioned, overall, there's the best overall category. If you win, also we'd love to have a virtual meeting with the Quarkus engineering team. So some of the leaders of the Quarkus community, we'd love to pick your brain, because most likely it's going to be a pretty cool app that you created, and just kind of get your experience. And then we'd love to do a blog post on the Quarkus website about the application and those kind of things. And then the subcategories, we'll do the same thing. We'll do the $5,000 prize, and we'll do some promotion. And we do have a participation award. So anyone who submits an app will get a free Quarkus t-shirt. And that could be a challenge to distribute, as you may guess. What we're going to do is give you all a code to use we have a swag online store. I'm probably not going to spend too much time here, but I wanted to make sure you all, this is in the dev post site specifically, but I wanted to kind of bring attention to one thing. These are just really the requirements around the apps if you choose a subcategory. Just a little bit more of a definition behind these subcategories. The one I wanted to call out was the modernized one. So this is the idea of taking an existing app and modernizing it using the Quarkus framework. If you choose this category, we would love to have kind of before and after metrics and code. So we'd love to see the cool work you did. That's probably the best way we're going to be able to evaluate that. So it's a little bit more work, but that's going to be really, really fun to see the improvement. The Quarkus provides such great improvements for performance and memory utilization and disk space. It's going to be neat to take that application and run some metrics first, make your changes, and then show a before and after, kind of like the home makeover thing. So it's a home makeover for your app. So just keep that in mind. Judging criteria, just a little bit of more information there. Nothing drastic here. Just have this innovation category, level of Quarkification, which we're going to look at, what APIs you used, what extensions you may have used, and then the category specific stuff, like I mentioned, if you submit to a subcategory, like say that the modernized, we'll also take performance and kind of what the impact of your app. So this is there for your reference moving forward. What I want to do now is I want to kind of get through the details of the hackathon. And I want to introduce Max Anderson, who is one of the founders of the community and one of the active members of the community. And just let him tell you from his own words about the community itself. So Max, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you. Not a founder. I actually joined the project fairly late because I was on sabbatical when the whole thing got created. But anyway, I do work on projects. I'm active in the community on Twitter and Zoop, and I do the Quarkus Insights podcast where we talk about what's it called? About Quarkus different topics. Like last week we had Andrew Din on the talk talking about GraalVM and his OpenJDK work. And next week we're going to have Clement talking about Mutiny and the reactive stuff we do there. So anyway, if you want to do the next slide, Steph. So yeah, what is Quarkus? So first is the name. Quark is the atomic particle, and us is the hardest thing in the universe to deal with. So Quarkus comes from this idea of trying to make Java usable in container applications. And by doing so, we looked at a lot of memory improvements and performance. And as Shaf is going to show you, we're basically moving all the stuff you normally do at runtime to build time. And that has some magical effects, especially during development time, but even more during runtime where we can save things. So next slide, Jeff. And the thing is that into Quarkus comes a lot of experts from a different runtimes or different frameworks we have in Red Hat and in the community, like Vertex and Hibernate, REST-EC, etc. And other things that, again, Shaf will touch upon is we are building on top of a bunch of other frameworks, meaning that even though the Quarkus is fairly new, all the stuff that actually doing your actual work and code is actually fairly stable, known software. But the great thing with Quarkus is we can kind of mix the world of old with new and get all these benefits from there. And the amazing thing is, and this is the next slide, Jeff, is that this all comes from a community. We started internally in Red Hat. It was a secret project, even very few knew in Red Hat about it. And then we kind of opened up a year ago. And it's this actually, I think next week, it's the 2-year celebration since the first commit. We had 60 releases. And we reached 300 plus contributors also this week. We also reached 5,000 GitHub stars, and we also reached 10,000 issues pull requests the same week. Which, just a fun kind of facts, but also just to illustrate that the community is aggressively growing, and it's kind of hard to follow up. But a lot of the stuff is into Quarkus itself, and I'm really looking forward to the hackathon to yes, see some extensions. That'll be lovely, but also just to see it actually being applied and used, which is stuff we don't tend to see in the community because we see Quark itself, but in Hackathon we're going to see more where it's applied. So I'm looking very much forward to it. And as Jeff said, there are the Sulip, there are the mail list, there are the Twitter tag, and the live sessions we're going to have where you can ask for help, etc. So anyway, that's my 5 minutes of fame. So on to Shaf, I think.
Hey, Max, real quick, if you don't mind, could you talk a little bit about extensions and the power of utilizing these extensions, and maybe we'll make a shameless plug about if you're thinking about creating an extension, how to do that.
Yeah. Yes. So the one thing that people need to realize is that Quarkus. Many people think Quarkus is about native. It is definitely a big part of it. But even without core native, you also have the VM mode running just on the JVM. And to do that, we need to do it efficiently, we need to do some stuff at build time. So you can use any library out there in Java mode, probably without an extension. But the two things you don't get there is the library load facilities. The fact that when you Hibernate are participating in the library load, it needs to know what resources about its which class has been added, that kind of thing. And for Quarkus to efficiently know that, the extension has to tell it, hey, I need to know about these things coming around, and then do something with it. And then the other part is that for the native builds, the different frameworks need to tell which part is the configuration, which one is the there we go. Which one is the runtime and build. So anyway, so that's what the power extension does. It allows you to generate the native stuff, but also participate during hardware load and the build to kind of make all this stuff happen at build time rather than at runtime. And to get started with the extensions, you go on Quarkus.io. In the guides, there's a thing called how to write an extension, which walks you through the basic stuff of what's there. And then, of course, every extension out there right now is open source, so you can see that there and get started from that one. I hope that helps, Jeff.
Great. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, everyone. I'm on a single screen here, so I'm not used to having my pop-up. So I'm going to turn over to Shaf now, and Shaf's going to talk about a little bit more of the kind of a technical overview if you're interested in figuring out what Quarkus is and then how to get started. So Shaf, you want to take control?
Yep, definitely. Let me just share my screen here. Okay. Just gonna. Can I close this? Oops. Still sharing. Yeah, sorry, I'm not used to Skype, so you have to bear with me a bit. So can you see?
You're live.
Okay, perfect, awesome. Okay, so my name is Syed Shaf. You can call me Shaf. I'm part of the technical marketing group, working with Jeff, as well as the engineering teams as well, making sure that the Quarkus is heard, the message is heard, and that's exactly what I'm going to do today. I'm going to present to you a bit about the technical overview. Now, I gave it some thought what would be the right way to present, because I think we have different levels of expertise in this hackathon. Some of you might be new to Quarkus as well, but if you're a Java developer, I mean, Quarkus is the best thing that has happened to Java since 1 year, right? So what is Quarkus, right? Quarkus, in a very nutshell, I mean, it's very much focused towards, let's say, container-first approach. So if you've done Java development for last decade or more, or for a couple of years, you would know the different things that you would run into. For example, running Java in containers, or trying to run Java much more faster, or faster startup times, etc., etc. All of that kind of hasn't really worked perhaps the way we would have wanted when it came to serverless or even having those fast boot times, right? So that's something that Quarkus addresses. We're going to show you that as well. What's also important is the fact of developer joy, right? So what is developer joy? And developer joy can be subjective sometimes, but there are tools for it, and tools that could actually help you optimize and work more efficiently. And Quarkus has some really good things there. For example, live coding, and in live coding, which I will show you in the demo as well, how you could do something quickly and understand and get your developer loop much more faster and quicker, right? Unifies imperative and reactive. So Quarkus has a reactive core, which is based on Vertex. It's non-blocking. It combines blocking as well. So that's a very cool feature in Quarkus and a unique feature in Quarkus. I think Max also spoke about the libraries and extensions that are out there. It's a growing ecosystem, and I think it's a really good opportunity to also look at extensions in case you are trying to, let's say, migrate a certain app running already today with a different framework into Quarkus as part of this hackathon. You might actually need some extensions, or you might want to leverage it when you go into something as native mode, as an example. So quick points around there. During this presentation, of course, I will not go in a lot more detail, but I think what I want to take the takeaways for this should be that you at least have a bit of concept about Quarkus, and you're able to get started with developing with Quarkus if you haven't done that already, right? So the truth about Java and containers, I think we spoke about it a bit. If you have a container, and if you remember when containers came in first, you might remember that Java would certainly crash, or the memories would go really high, and suddenly there is no application anymore. All of those different problems sorted throughout period of time through Java 9, having some of the quotas and stuff like that, and running in Kubernetes as an example. It has been a bit of a ride, right? And that has been a challenge. So not just the memory, the CPU cycles that's used, even if you look at startup times, that could increase up to a minute or minutes in some cases when applications are running in production. Now, if I was to say that we want to run cloud native, or we want to be able to, let's just say, defining a simple function, a serverless function, or even the need for a quick startup time, Java was not there, right? So I think that's one of the challenges that we have faced with Java. Of course, the memory size of it, the whole size of the application itself, all of that matter. So is it really Is it really that containers are not a good fit for Java? That's not the case, of course. With Quarkus, you are able to even optimize that further. If you're running a simple Quarkus application with Graal VM, of course, you can run a simple REST and CRUD application, so create, update, and delete application, about 28 megabytes, right? That's really low in memory, right? You could do the same thing. Now, this is, of course, running native application, compiled to native, and I'll speak a bit about what the native is and how it works, and why is it so small. Then you have the Quarkus and OpenJDK, right? You might not want to be native. You want to take leverage from what Java offers or JDK offers. In that case, again, Quarkus has, let's say, a very small footprint, about 145 megabytes. That's almost like pretty much almost half of a native cloud application stack, right? So it's not just about the memory, but it's also about, let's say, the speed in terms of how it quickly comes up. So here are some numbers again from some tests, and these are also on the Quarkus.io website. The Quarkus plus Graal VM is quite fast, and then of course Quarkus plus OpenJDK has a bit more, but still very good numbers. And if you look at a traditional cloud native app, it goes really high. So that's what we're trying to address. So bringing that cool factor back to Java, so that you can run it in your cloud applications. Okay, I think I have a. Sorry about that. Seems like it got stuck, but perhaps it's a good time to give you a quick demo as well. So maybe that's what my computer is trying to tell me. So here I have a simple. I'm just going to do a simple application, show you how it looks. How the structure looks. You can use different tools to do this. You can use Maven. You can use IntelliJ. I prefer using Visual Studio Code for my demo. But you can use any IDE. If you're using Eclipse, you can use that too. So here, I'm just going to quickly start a project. I'm going to generate a Quarkus project. We have a Quarkus tools, which are part of VS Code. You can use that, Quarkus extension with IntelliJ as well. If you're using CodeReady, Eclipse.J, you could use that too. So you have the tools everywhere, pretty much, depending on what IDE you're using. I'm using Maven, so taking that. Putting my, a group ID or Acme, simple, and getting started. I've tried this pretty much 3 times before. So let's see, 3 times it worked. Hopefully works the 4th time as well. And then, of course, the snapshot and my package name. And a simple greeting resource. So I just want to have like a hello world resource out there. So now the application says, so this tool says, okay, what extensions do you need? At the moment, I'm not going to add any extensions. I'm just going to simply generate my project in this directory. Perfect. Let's open it in a new window. And here we are. So this is VS Code. Of course, I'm using Java extensions. I have some. I have the greeting resource.java, which is pre-generated. If I just want to run it quickly, I would do something like mvn Quarkus dev. That should basically run my application in dev mode. And we're going to talk about dev mode in a second or in a couple of minutes as well. Oops. Oh, yeah. So I don't really have Java 11. Don't ask me why. I have Java 8 and Java 14. So that's a jump. And don't ask me why I took that jump. But we're going to live with that for now. So just gonna quickly do that again, and boom. Okay. So this should work. So this should bring in, let's say, the Quarkus dev mode, which is my local dev mode, and I'm gonna run the application on, and you can see how fast it comes up. It's a simple application. I have a browser plugin here that kind of shows me localhost port 8080. So an application that is built quite simple, right? If I wanted to do something, let's say make sure, okay, you can see Skype is giving me some resource issues here. Anyways, so if I want to just say, okay, I want to do a native build for this, and I want to, compile this, and I'm doing it on my machine. You could do it within a container if you didn't have Graal VM as an example to do that native build. So we're going to kick off that process, and while I kick off that process, I can just quickly show you what's going on. So it basically builds up. It basically starts building up my application. It's going to go through the tests, and of course, it's going to go through. It's going to try to create my native extension as well. Once it starts doing that, there's a bunch of things that it's going to do. Now, why is it important to do all those things? That is, of course, the ahead of time compilation. What happens there? Let's quickly take a look. So let me share my screen again, and hopefully this is going to work this time. Perfect. So the build process. The build process, what the native compilation is doing is it's compiling compiling the application. It's kind of looking at the exact wiring of all the code that's going in there. It's trying to remove some of those dead elements that don't necessarily need to be used. And why would it do that? I mean, when you have a Java application, you run it, it starts running, it has, let's say, just-in-time capabilities. It starts to look at optimizing it as you go along, as the application starts to run. But once you're running, let's say, in a much more faster environment, like in case of a serverless environment, or you want a faster startup time as an example, then of course you want your application to be with that kind of pace. And of course, in that case, you do not perhaps maybe need some of those optimizations, but you do need to understand that, okay, I want to take some of these things that I don't really need, some specific lines of dead code that doesn't necessarily need to be there. So it optimizes, it goes through it, and does this ahead of time, as you would call it, compilation, and basically prepares that for the native application. Now, what does a regular framework do on startup times? Of course, goes through a bunch of things, reflections, IO threads, annotations, getter setters. Quarkus optimizes that by looking at all of that and basically taking that on the build time. So you're now having a bigger build phase and a shorter startup phase. And I think that's the change that you would see when you start to run with Quarkus. So all of the complexities, all of, like I said, the dead code elimination, the metadata stuff, all of that basically is being done at build time. Now that makes it much more faster, and that's exactly how it also optimizes. Of course, Quarkus also ensures that you can optimize your Java application. So that's why you see some of those small sizes for both memory as well. Now, when to use which kind of mode? Quarkus will run in JVM mode as well as with GraalVM. Of course, when you have GraalVM, you are doing a native compilation. You're looking at, let's say, looking at a lower heap size. If you have an application that's only 32 megs, as an example, then you're not looking at areas where you might want to do garbage collection or even run it for extremely long times. So it does have faster startup times. It's a great use case for things like serverless. But then, of course, you might want your application to have things like garbage collectors. You want to have the same raw performance, and you want to take that advantage of that ahead of time compilation as well. So you have the OpenJDK hotspot mode in that sense. So let's just quickly go to our slide again here, and I can see that the application is already being built, which was built quite quickly actually. It takes memory, goes through tons of process to get to there, and you can see that it has. Let's just go in my target directory here, and we see what's going on. So here you see I have a binary. The binary is about 26 megabytes. So it's everything inclusive. Make sure that it is a binary that can run. So now I just have to do Quarkus, getting started, runner, and I have an application running. And look at that. So, well, I have to allow it. But look at that, how fast it is. It's 0.019 seconds, right? So that's pretty fast, blazingly fast for Java. It's using REST endpoint. It's using CDI. And if I go here again and press my browser here, you can see that it loads this standard application out there, right? So let's move on a bit, and what I also want to talk about in a bit is the developer joy part, right? And in the developer joy, of course, one thing I mentioned was live coding. There's the configuration that you would do, and also, just enough tooling for how you work with different extensions. And you heard Max also talk about, how it actually works with live coding and extensions as well. So let's quickly go into that live coding mode. I think it's really cool. There's a bunch of features that we can talk about there. So I'm just gonna do that. Let me see how I can close this side. Yep. Okay, perfect. So we have the greeting resource. That's fine. It's a simple application. Let's just quickly build a new application. We're going to build a to-do application. So I just do a to-do.java file here, create that, and just make sure that I can run it. So I want to put some properties in there. Maybe starting with, I want to say it's an entity. Okay. Oops, hang on. What just happened here? So VS Code, yeah. Hey, give me the control. There you go. So I don't have an entity. Interesting. So let's just say I want to add an extension here. An extension would be, let's say, Panache. .NET-ORM, and that's going to give me the Panache entity, which of course, okay, I can see that my VS Code is not bringing up the right. Here you go, entity. Live coding is always fun. Perfect. So now we have a to-do entity class here, basically just using the JavaX persistent entity and extending the Panache entity. Now, Panache is a great framework, basically kind of makes it easier for you to access the database and also work with Hibernate, right? So I'm gonna basically add a bunch of fields quickly now. I hope I have the right time here. Perfect. So title, I want to have a title for my to-do list. I want to have a Boolean saying it's completed or not. I would like to say it has an order for my tasks, simple to do MVC app. And then, of course, I want to have a URL, right? So that's my simple 4 different things. But then, of course, I want to say that there has to be some features as well, right? I don't want the title to be blank, so it should be perfectly okay there. I want this column to be unique. Let's just do that. Perfect. Complete is fine, but order is kind of like a key word in a lot of these databases. So we wanted to be, we wanted to rename it and make sure that it's not conflicting with the database, but it keeps the same in our entity here. Then, of course, a bit of more things here. I want to have a static method here. List to do. Find not completed. I'm going as fast as I can here. Return list. So that's a function from Panache for us to be able to add the get the list. So I'm basically just going to say, give me all the entries which are not completed, right? And then I have maybe a 1 which I want for completed. Find completed. Okie dokie. And return list completed. True. Perfect. One more function we're going to add here is if we want to delete it, right? So we also want to be able to delete this. Okay, completed. And then return delete. And this again is the Panache framework in action, giving us the option to easily delete the entity where the criteria is true. Perfect. So there we have a simple to-do.java. Of course, that's just the entity, right? And I also need to have my database. So I want to probably also add an extension there, which we will just do in a second. But before I do that, let's just add a new resource as well, right? Okay. So we have a to-do resource. We want to give it a path. So it should listen on API. We want to make sure that it produces JSON. So let's do that. And perfect. And it also consumes JSON. So let's do that too. Perfect. So now we have that. Hang on. Consumes. Perfect. You can tell that I don't usually use VS Code that much, but what? Okay. Perfect. So we have that. Now what we might want to do is we would simply write a function, a simple function that will list all the to-dos, right? You would usually want that. And to do get all. I just want to show this, and I think the rest of the functions is just gonna quickly do that. To do dot list all, right? That's again a panache function. I could do that, but of course I also want. Hang on, forgot the list. There you go. So we could list all, but hey, how about if we wanted to sort that by actually ordering it, right? So we do that too. And add that as well. So that's a simple, let's say get all function here. But since we want to do this quickly in respect of time, I'm going to take some code from what I've already created, not to mingle with all the details there with all the different functions. But before I do that, I would want to start my application. Let's see what it says. Okay, it's giving me some errors. What is it telling me? It's probably telling me that I'm missing things here. Yeah, I don't have a property for Quarkus data source DB, right? I mean, I don't have anything in my application properties. What I've of course done beforehand is that I've started my Postgres database. What I also have here is my project that I've done already before. So I'm just gonna quickly take the application properties from here to connect to the same database, and that should be fine. But I know that what's going to happen next, though. So here you go. It's going to report some more failures. It's going to tell me, hey, buddy, you don't even have your database, even though that you have it there, right? So let's add the extension to the running console there. So let's say I have a Postgres SQL database. Let's add that. So with Postgres SQL, you can see there's a couple of options here. You can use the Camel Divisium. Of course, that's a Divisium use case. You have the reactive Postgres SQL client as well. So if you want to do reactive, like I said, it's the reactive core. You could do that too. And then of course there's a JDBC driver as well. So we're just going to use the regular JDBC, add it there. And while my instance is running, it's going to add this as well, right? So hang on, I'm on the wrong screen here. A sec. There you go. And what did I do now? Oops, that's the wrong directory. Okay, sorry about that. So let's just, So now it's telling me, like we anticipated, that the Postgres driver is not there. So let's just add the Postgres driver. Postgres driver, and enter. And now you can see that it just created that Postgres driver, added that Postgres driver into my Quarkus application, And suddenly you see that my application just started to work. Now that's interesting, right? So that's all live code. I'm just doing these changes on the fly, and then they're just happening here. What else is going wrong here? Let's just quickly see that. Wow, there's another thing that's it cannot really read my endpoint. So hey, let's add another extension here. Whoa, what would that be? I need JSON, so I didn't really add the JSON extension. So which JSON extension should we add? JSON B, and then we add this serialization here. And then it will add that in real time as well. Now, all of this is happening while I'm just working on my application. You can see the Quarkus has basically initiated that. When I said here API, basically doesn't return anything because there isn't anything in the database anyways right now. So it's kind of empty, right? Let's just make this more interesting. Let's copy some of the other things that will make sense for this as well, right? Even while we are actually just working live. So copy this. Oops. Copy this here. And I'm just going to go in my meta-inf here and add these. So yep, there you go. And what I also want to do is I want to populate the database a bit as well. So I'll quickly do that too. There you go. No, I don't want to install that. No, thank you. Okay, perfect. And now let's run it again. Whoa, suddenly there is data. So it basically just all live coding happening in the fly. If I go back to this point here, okay, my screen might just be too small. Let's just make it a bit bigger. So I created this new to-do HTML file. Did I just, yeah, hang on. Okay. So basically just getting that data out and also working with this quite quickly. What I also want to show you quite quickly with the live coding is another interesting feature. So if I go on one of my applications here, let's just close this for a second, in my to-do resource, and I say remove this semicolon, right? And I go back to my application. Let's just do that here for making sure that you can actually see it. Whoa, what just happened? So it shows me a stack, but you see the stack is also quite interesting. It actually is showing me a reverse stack. So rather than going through a lot of those details around things that we're doing, you could just simply keep on working on this and you save, and here you go again, and I'm just going to refresh, and here the application starts to work again, right? So it's pretty fast. It does it pretty nicely as well. So let's do one more thing is quickly while I'm kind of going through this, we could compile this to native as well, right? And while we do that, we're just going to go back to our presentation there in end of time, of course. Okie dokie. So what you saw there, I think a couple of things I went back and forth. So just let me regroup on that. I created an application after starting my dev mode. I was able to add extensions to it. Live coding was happening there. I'm able to make errors if of course, every developer does. I do a lot, by the way. And then, of course, those are also easily you can see them and you can fix them. You can get the feedback right away. If you were using something like Kafka Streams as well, that would also you'll be able to live code on the streams as well. And that is also pretty cool functionality there as well. All the configuration, all those different bits, kind of all put together makes it much more simpler when it comes to how you're actually coding. And of course, with Java, that's pretty cool because we haven't had this kind of functionality for some time there, right? So that's at least the developer joy bits. Then going into the reactive and imperative. Now, most of the frameworks, like when you're developing, let's say you develop an application, you start with a microservice. As soon as you start to say, hey, what should I use? Like which framework should I use? Let's say you use an imperative framework. You start coding on it. A simple, kind of like all synchronous APIs and stuff like that. And then suddenly you realize, hey, but I need my applications to be reactive as well. And suddenly you're saying, hey, I maybe need an event bus here somewhere, or I need to get a stream of data into my application, and I need to process those streams, on the fly and make it more reactive also towards my front end and stuff like that. So you kind of get into this quest where you actually programming pattern you use, like reactive or imperative, you would be able to use both of them together in Quarkus as well, which is also pretty nice and great. Whoa, okay, back on the screen. So on the Quarkus extensions, there's a bunch of extensions. I think we mentioned 90 over there. There's a list of them. If I just quickly go here, since you guys will be coding as well, bear with me. My machine is getting slower and slower with Skype and a lot of other things happening here. So if I go on code.quarkus.io, you would be able to see something where you can actually start your project. So it's a launcher. You can actually pretty much say, hey, I want REST or I want JSON-B, just like I did. Click that. I want to add, maybe there's so many of them here. A lot of them, if you want to build it on AWS with their Lambdas, or you want to use the new Mutiny API, you select all of that, or gRPC. If you're looking at other things, you would be able to pretty much do it. There's also other extensions, which are OpenShift extensions and Kubernetes extensions. So if you want to deploy your applications on top of Kubernetes with, let's say, Jib or something similar, or onto OpenShift, you would also be able to do that. Once you do that, you put your stuff here, whatever you want to call your project, and you can generate that application. So you can even do it that way, and then you would be able to import it back into your IDE or whatever development environment you see fit. But there's a lot of extensions here, and they should be able to help you in your hackathon as well. Another thing, of course, which I believe Jeff will speak about as well, is the guides, which I highly recommend that you should go through. When you start your first application and all of the different things, so all of the different aspects of how you would create an application, whether it's your JWT, whether it's security, whether it's your data with MongoDB or Neo4j or stuff like that, or Apache Kafka, so making more event-driven systems there. Camel, as an example, all of those different guides are here to get you started, and you can follow those guides. There's also a GitHub page for the Quarkus Kickstart, so there's a repo there that you can also start to get started. And in my demo as well, I have shared the getting started that I just used, which the end product of it, so you can actually clone that as well, which is part of the which I've put on this slides here. So at this point, I am going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to pass it on to.
All right. I was actually going to tell you to hang on to it.
Oh,
that's all right. Let me share my screen now. Start sharing. All right. You back to my screen now?
Yeah.
All right.
There you go.
Okay. So I wanted to close things out. Thanks, Shaf. That was great. And actually, we had a question that was pretty important, I thought. What is your VS Code theme, Shaf? Do you know that offhand?
Yeah, it's Atom Dark theme. I did have a Quarkus theme for a while. It's also pretty cool. But, I'm one of those guys who keep on changing themes, but I don't like to spend time on it. So I think Atom Dark it was pretty interesting.
All right, great. So what we wanted to do was give you all out there because we wanted to give you a single slide to kind of have it all in one place. And so if you think about it from a couple different perspectives, if you're really in this learn phase where you just want to understand the technology a little bit more, obviously first and foremost is the community. So there's a link up here to the community. The Red Hat developer site also has a lot of great blogs and articles and a lot of great webinars and tutorials. So that's a great place to go as well for some information. There's a YouTube channel with tips and tricks called Q-Tips, and there's a link here. These are really great short videos about a specific topic, and I suggest logging in and looking at those. Those are really good. There's no shortages of webinars out there. there has been a tremendous amount of growth in this community, and the developer adoption has been pretty rapid, and so there's been a lot of requests for webinars. So there's a link to an aggregation of all those. If you want to really get in this try mode where you're starting to, I guess, get your feet wet a little bit, we've got a ton of getting started guides that kind of walk you through that process. As Shaf showed you, there are extension guides. And then we also have these self-paced tutorials where it doesn't require any installation. It's self-paced, it's interactive. It really walks you through. So if you're not quite comfortable yet, you want to take that route. You spend 15-20 minutes, and you'll learn a lot about the Quarkus framework there. And then probably most people just want to start coding. So code.quarkus.io is one of, if not the best place to start. As Shaf showed you there, that's a great initializer. A ton of great quick starts available. And we wanted to give you quick links. No matter what your IDE is, there are some plugins and development tools for that. So VS Code, Eclipse, IntelliJ, and Che. Lastly, I just want to make sure everyone knows that the best place to get help is to be a part of the Zulip chat. So sign up today, and obviously I encourage you to participate overall in the community, but there is a hackathon stream available there that will be answering all the questions. So please submit there. Once again, we've got the Quarkit Twitter handle or Twitter hashtag, so please use that. Please tell us your stories too. We want to hear about your journey along the way, and so we'll be giving away some Quarkus swag too for some good stories along the way there. And then obviously the YouTube channel is we're going to be our single point for delivering the content to you. So with that being said, I want to thank Max and Shaf and you all for attending.
So just there was a few questions that we left unanswered in the chat.
Okay.
If you want to cover those.
What were they? I missed those.
Yeah, so one was asking, there we go. Does an extension that provides developer joy being valid for the hackathon? And we said yes. Any kind of extension, whether it's for production use or doing development, is a valid contribution. And then we had, do we get an OpenShift environment for the hackathon? So I told them to try OpenShift was possible, but I wonder if you had anything else to add to that one.
Yeah, we aren't making a hosted version of OpenShift available. We really want to decouple. This is a community hackathon, community sponsored hackathon. So we don't want to limit anyone obviously to OpenShift, even though a lot of us are with Red Hat. So we wanted to keep it open in terms of Kubernetes or OpenShift. Now I'm not as familiar. There are options, right? Like is Shaf or Max, is Minishift or ODO a good option? I'm not as familiar with the OpenShift stuff.
You could use Minishift, which is OpenShift 3, but or CRC code-ready containers, so you can run it locally. There is tryopenshift.com where you can get for a certain limited amount of time you can get something for free. But otherwise, yeah, you can also use anyone who's built this on Google Cloud Engine or Amazon Cluster or Optaya or something. I think it's fine as long as it's something that's like plain vanilla and can deploy on Kubernetes. We would be accepting it.
Okay, so just to reiterate, so it's try.openshift.com. I think you can get access to for a limited period. Code Ready Containers is a self-contained OpenShift environment. If you do me a favor, we'll either address that or post that in the Zulip chat, that we can give you all the great options, so it's so you can kind of research and pick and choose, because there'll probably be some other folks that care about that question as well.
And then Ram was asking, what's the minimum requirement for hardware for compiling Dockerizing Quarkus native? So I explained in the chat that we recommend about 5 gigs for compiling, and he said he had a 16 gig Mac and it was still a problem. So I asked him to go to Zulip chat to make sure we cover his specific situation. But just one thing that I've seen repeatedly is that people actually run on a Mac or Windows and they build a native app. And when they build that native app, they do it through Docker. And Docker is actually limited by default to about 4 gigs, meaning that your Docker container will actually run out of memory before your machine does. So one thing you have to do is just tell Docker to allocate more memory for your desktop, what's it called, for your runtime. Otherwise, you will have, if you have 32 or 64 gigs, it doesn't matter. The Docker machine is constrained. So yeah, and it does take resources to do the native compile. But again, doing development, you don't need to. And if you actually want to do continuous build and have it available, I recommend using something like GitHub Actions, where you can actually build Quarkus apps natively in their CI system. So yeah, I think that kind of covers. That's the question that I remember. Oh no, someone says, what's the difference between Knative and serverless? But I was just that we have a service category. We have a category called Kubernetes Native. That Kubernetes Native is actually not Knative. Knative is a specific subsystem in Kubernetes land for serverless. So if you do Knative, it's serverless. But if you do an app that runs on Kubernetes or OpenShift, that kind of thing, then you're in the Kubernetes Native category.
So the subcategories are Kubernetes native, i.e. cloud native, or container native, excuse me. And then obviously serverless, we want to keep it more broadly focused where it could be, any serverless app, not necessarily dependent upon Knative.
Awesome.
Good point.
I think that's it.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Thank you for joining the hackathon. And like I said, the Zulip chat, that's where we're all at, and that's where you get your questions answered. So please submit there. So we look forward to talking with you and having some more sessions, and have a good rest of your day. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.